Hey, Danny,
Hey, Juan.
is this the link that we're supposed to use for the breakout session?
Yeah, this is the link you're going to be using.
Okay.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Biases,
Hey, Juan.
hidden or otherwise.
I see you got in using the link.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. Good
And it's
morning.
from
Good morning.
hiring
Let me leave the other
the
session.
right.
All right, I think I got it. It didn't want to let me use my video. Oh, looking sharp in the suit and tie. I guess I can get rid of my coat. Flipping cold here. I don't know about in the valley, but here it's cold.
Well, it's probably not as cold as up that way, but it's
Well,
cold for us. It's cold for us.
I mean, I'm in the North Valley. I'm in Chico, so I'm not even up in Susanville. I haven't been up there for so long now. I'd have to totally reacclimate to the cold up there.
Right, right.
A whole nother story, but it just seems like it's really chilly this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's been getting down to about the low to mid 30s in the evening, and it taking a little bit of time to warm up, but we'll get up to the mid to high 50s, maybe possibly the low 60s here the next couple of days. But
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. So, are you excited?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I look forward to the conversation, particularly in the breakout rooms, and then as we bring the thoughts together.
Check.
With the follow-up to the breakout rooms where the slide prompts, for in a minute share, is that from each room or is that just anyone who'd like to share coming out of the room?
I think anyone who would like to share, and I think, yeah, that's.
I gather because it said 15 minutes, so I figured that might be the case, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and you'll be facilitating that slide and that conversation. So
yeah, so I wanted to make sure
it looks like Leslie and Michelle might be in the wrong room.
I think they're in the main room still.
So I'm assuming, Cheryl, it's not going to be the last moment, right? That they're going to cancel the meeting to or move the meeting to virtual. Have you heard?
I sure hope
yet?
not. I mean, I'm anticipating a go.
Okay.
And so when are you scheduled to head out?
Tomorrow evening. Well, late afternoon.
Later in the day.
Yeah.
I suppose just given how quickly everything happened last time, it couldn't hurt to shoot Christine just an email, just saying, heads up, here's my departure time. If anything changes, can I please know ahead of that? I think it's a reasonable request.
Check.
It seems traditionally we haven't made decisions like that very quickly. So that was part of the surprise of that one. I wasn't necessarily surprised that we weren't meeting given the Omicron surge, but I was surprised the decision was made so quickly and so close to the meeting.
Right.
That's not usual for us.
Okay.
Or at least not historically.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Leslie, you made it. Yay.
Gosh, thank you so much. I was panicking like, oh my gosh. Let me get my background on.
That's how I felt too. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with the link? It's asking me for a passcode. Oh my God, right? And then Melissa sent an email and I clicked it and sure enough, got in.
It came right in. Oh yeah, I just got a new one too. I didn't even see that. I had one tagged from yesterday or the day before. Oh goodness, dogs. You guys are gonna have to go in the other room.
It's not letting me go to my normal background. Huh. I had my.
Yay. Well,
I know. Sorry.
your video's on.
I know, and I don't. Oh, here we go. Okay. How come, like, my normal backgrounds are different? It's different. Everything's different. How come everything's different?
I don't know. I have an older laptop, so I've never been able to use any backgrounds.
Wow. It's like not even letting me blur out my background.
Hello, Michelle Velasquez Bean.
Hello, friends.
Hey.
I see so many people adding in. No one needs a drink of water. Friends that are adding in or that are on right now, don't forget self-care. Go grab, I see Lisa,
Right.
yay, Lisa, with your drink. Go grab water, hydrate.
Recording stopped.
I have both the caffeine and the water, so I made sure I was
Yeah,
covered here.
The two, right? I got my
You're ready.
my two.
You're ready. Malena, we're taking a 5-minute break. We're not starting for a few minutes. So if that's gives you a chance to go take care of stuff, go for it.
Mm-hmm. As our colleague
And
Carrie
I've
would
heard
say,
Clint
comfort
before.
in need.
Since I'm at the same campus with Clint Doherty, I've already heard Clint before, so I snuck out a couple minutes early. So.
Okay, so as you all are adding in, Cheryl, Leslie, and Juan and I are going to be chatting with our AV while you go grab your snack, take care of your personal comforts and needs. We won't be starting for a few more minutes, so you have plenty of time to take care of yourself. But I don't see our AV person on. Do you, Cheryl?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Danny's here.
I'm here
Danny,
for you guys.
Oh, yay. I was trying to scroll through.
Yeah,
So that-
so right now I'm assigning the captioner. They should have the ability to go ahead and type and do the live transcripts.
Thank you, Danny. And then Danny, will you also set up 4 breakout rooms for us, please?
Yes, I will be the one to assign the breakout rooms. Do you know how many rooms you would want for that?
If you could assign 4, and they can be named J, M, C, and L. So a breakout room for M, a breakout room for C, and a breakout room for L, and a breakout room for J. That way, each of the 4 faculty leaders can head over and assist in the conversation in any supportive way necessary.
Got it. Okay.
So Juan, Leslie, Cheryl, is that cool? Is that clear? All right. Thank you, Danny, for naming them for us so we know where to go.
Yeah, of course. And then do your participants know which room they want or which room they're going into, or is that just as they decide once we enable the breakout rooms?
If you can just distribute evenly, that would be great. So all of you amazing colleagues on the line, thank you for being here. We'll get started in about 1 minute. We're just conferring with our Pro AV, Danny, our tech guru in the background, about breakout rooms that we'll be doing in a little bit. We're gonna start off with some slides first, but take another minute, friends. If you need to go grab, thank you. Ooh, Tim, what you got there, Tim? I love it. Take care of your personal comforts and needs. Grab your water, grab your coffee. Don't forget to hydrate. Take care of yourself in the next minute or two. That's part of our social justice work, our self-care.
Sitting, do some stretches, move around for a minute, walk in place till we get ready to go. Here we go, Ted. You could lead the yoga.
All right, Ted, I love your hair, Ted.
Oh, it's wonderful to see some familiar faces in pictures and in your videos. So fantastic. I apologize in advance. My dogs like to take a break at about 10:45, and we try to do it early.
You'll probably hear mine, Cheryl. We rescued a dog, and then she was pregnant and had 5 puppies. So we've homed 4 of them. Still have a puppy in the mama, so they get a little crazy too. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, mine are outside barking at the wind, so we're safe for now. You'll probably join in later. The wind, we've got Santa Ana winds today in the low desert, and so it's blowing stuff up against the house, and they're out there barking at it. So, yeah.
Cheryl, can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Yeah, sure, John.
I had to drop off the meeting before, but I was the one that was asking you about where to find Title V stuff, and you might have answered, and I came back and it wiped the chat clean.
Oh, bummer. I should have copied it and held it. I think as you go to the Senate website, don't search Title V, because you'll find all kinds of Title V references and the regulatory language, which is in reality, as faculty, we don't work with on a daily basis. There are a few places I suggest you look and just browse initially. And that's on the website under the resources tab. A lot of things pop up, but I would look for papers. I would look for rostrum articles. In the papers, within the first little bit of scrolling in 2017, we had a course outline of record revisited paper. It creates some of the framework, and that's specifically for course outline. Our required structures for syllabi are more personalized for us. But then in rostrum, there are also articles, including right at the top of the list, I think the second or third entry, something about essentially advancing anti-racism in our course outlines. And so you'll browse through. There's stuff in there about syllabi, about teaching approaches, and that could be a place to start. The other is this month we have a free event, and this everybody should know if you don't already. And we'll put it in the chat, a link to it in the chat. But we have a part-time institute, and it's free, it's virtual, so you can attend from wherever you are. And there's some elements of all of this work that particularly as it applies to part-time faculty applying it in the classroom that we'll talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. So, all right, I'll see if I can find the tab so it's under resources.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You can imagine when I looked after you told me that I went and looked and went.
Yeah, that'd be overwhelming. Our website has just been revamped, and honestly, I think we're still struggling to get the search function to work really well. So if you search, search for syllabi if you want, but it's an overwhelming list right now. It's not filtering real well on the searches. But just to do a browse, I think to start would let you see the wealth of resources available there.
All right, I'll try it, and if I can't find it, I'll ding you.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you.
For the presenters today, I do have a copy of your PowerPoint. Do you want me to be the one that shares the screen, or are one of you going to handle that?
If you don't mind, Danny, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, of course. And then at what time during this meeting would you like me to do that? Right now?
We're ready, yeah.
Great, yeah, thank you.
Got it.
So friends and colleagues, as Danny's putting up the screen, we're going to share a few slides. So feel free, excuse me, to mute yourselves. We will be doing, for full transparency, we're going to be doing a little activity. So we're going to have a Padlet at the end. So maybe a 2-screen thing later. We'll give directions on that. And then we'll be going into breakout rooms. Feel free to keep your videos off. We want to make everyone feel safe and comfortable. and to contribute how you feel you know, you want to contribute today. So I'm gonna stop speaking so I can hand it over to Cheryl to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Asheback. I'm Secretary for the Academic Senate and an English professor at Lassen College in Northeastern California. Juan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Juan Arzola. I'm the one of the at-large representatives for the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. I'm also a political science professor at College of the Sequoias in Visalia. Leslie?
Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Schull, and I am an adjunct professor of business and real estate at Sacramento City College in Sacramento. Glad to be here.
And my name is Michelle Velasquez Bean. I'm the ASCCC treasurer. So good to be here with you all this morning. A little bit about me, a professor of English, Chicana from the East LA area. And we are just so excited to be, again, with you all here. So I think, Cheryl, you have the first couple of slides.
Yeah, I do. Next slide, please. We're excited you're joining us. We want to share a little bit of information and then definitely engage in conversation with all of you. And, you know, I imagine that as you hopefully have been listening to the rest of the sessions, you know, we're talking about really creating cultural change and having anti-racist institutions and being inclusive. So much of it sounds like it's at the really high levels of our institution and doesn't necessarily feel connected to our work as faculty. So that's what this space is meant to be, is how can we as faculty in all of our many roles as faculty help to further this work, and what are we experiencing along the way? And so our outcomes are we, you know, want to continue to understand how anti-racism is a journey. We're all in different places. We want to share some common language to support productive conversations on race. Sometimes that's the barrier to engaging, is not feeling comfortable or feeling like there's a common language. We want to be able to share experiences, challenges, successes, and things that have been helpful as we combat structural racism. And we want to engage activities to, you know, collectively and together talk about how we can create a culture of anti-racism and make commitments to do that in whatever our roles may be. Next slide.
Okay, I think this is my slide here. I just wanted to, and for some reason I'm losing my voice, so bear with me, friends. In our community agreement, you see there at the bottom there, and please feel free, I'm going to open the chat right now to see if you have anything that you want to add in addition to coming together and staying engaged in the process. Like I said, feel comfortable to put on your video or not, but as we're here together, you know, it's so easy to multitask, and I'm hoping that we can all agree that when we do our activities that we're all engaged and listening to each other. And to know that number two, we are going to be experiencing some discomfort today. So as we talk about racism, it's not always comfortable, and that's okay. And wherever you're at, no shame, no blame. We're in this together. We're all in a different place, as we've said throughout the two-day event in our anti-racist journey. So speak your truth, be your authentic self. This is a safe space, and we want to create that. So definitely feel free to let us know as leaders here in this space, you know, what we can do to be better and to create that safe space. And then number 4 on the community agreement, there may not be a closure on that there's an end point, right? To accept that we all are learning and growing, and to, you know, have that empathy and that care for each other. That's that first bullet as well. You know, as we engage in this work, that's matters of the heart, as I was saying earlier, it's about embracing our whole humanity and coming from that place of empathy, love, and forgiveness. And knowing that we have that second bullet, the self-awareness, and engaging in that self-awareness, that skill that's needed, and that does involve emotion. And then that third bullet there on the top, that it's all our own personal journey and growth. And so we take accountability for our own growth. And then being open-minded, right? So again, no judgment or blame, but taking the care that we need for ourselves and for each other. So if there's anything else in our community agreements that you want to add, please feel free to put that into the chat so that we can all agree upon those. So I'm going to take silence as we all agree on these community agreements as we engage in the matters of the heart, or feel free to right now use your reactions at the bottom of the screen with a heart or a thumbs up. And if there's anything that you want to add, then take a moment to add that to the chat right now. Thank you. I see your thumbs up. Thank you, Ted, Lisa, Bree, Tim, everybody, Victoria. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. And then I'm going to pass it to my colleague. We have Leslie coming up next. Leslie, to talk about our next element.
Thank you, my friend. So as the slide comes up, I know it's coming. There it is. Michelle got the heart, I got the complicated one. So as we consider our own and our institutional journeys, which is what we're going to be doing in breakouts, to becoming anti-racist, I want to invite you to kind of view this amazing image. And I don't know whether any of you have seen this before. It's one person's interpretation of Ibram X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I think it was also referred to in the Racial Healing Handbook, Annalise A. Singh's, Dr. Singh's book. And if you can see, I hope everybody can see the image, yes? We can walk through this, but as we see in the zones, there's various descriptions on the journey there. And we all are probably in different places at different times, right? There's different descriptions in the zone, and I invite you to sit within them. And I know sometimes I feel like I'm in one place at one time and another place at other times, and your institution might be at one place at one time, and you maybe go to a meeting and you're like, oh, at another time. But maybe withhold harsh judgment and enable yourself to have an honest assessment, right? It's a journey, and a necessary journey that we're all on. The host muted me. It said the host muted me. Is it time for me to stop talking?
No, my bad. That was my error. Forgive me, friend. That was my error. I just, if everyone else can mute so that we can hear Leslie, and that was me just trying to find the person. So apologies.
That's awesome. No, but everybody just kind of needs to take their time with it, and then consider the zones, consider your institutional zones. And then now, but the natural progression of this is consider the zones, then on to the language. And the language we use in the language as an anti-racism education. I turn myself over to my colleague Juan.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, everybody, for having me and us here this morning to come in community and to, of course, have this very difficult but necessary conversation, right? So next slide, please. As we know, engaging in anti-racist work requires, just like any hard work, requires a way for us to communicate with each other so that we're on the same page. And I think Cheryl sort of highlighted this in as one of our goals, is to ensure that we develop, agree, and carry forward a common vocabulary as it comes to engaging in this type of work. So I'm sure many of us have heard these concepts, these terms in different spaces and different places with different contexts, right? So for the purposes of the work that we're engaged in to become anti-racist education institutions, we need to consider it in that context, right? So what is race? Again, different contexts might provide you with a different definition, but I think most scholars would agree that race is about a social construct that seeks to distinguish people based on some arbitrary characteristic And of course, when race is used to distinguish individuals or groups of people in intentional and unintentional ways, particularly when power is involved here, right? That obviously can be looked at as racism, right? And so we know that racism, again, whether it is in greater society or in our educational and social institutions, you know, consist of a variety of practices, beliefs, you know, where some sort of hierarchy is created, a social structure is developed and maintained that is strictly based on race, where some who sit at the top of that hierarchy, at the top of that structure, you know, hold and wield some belief of superiority, right? Some privileges that allow them to discriminate and oppress upon others, right? So really challenging when we start thinking about, of course, these types of efforts and practices, whether they're historical, current. We need to be able to identify that racism exists in many different forms, right? So when we think about, for example, interpersonal racism, this is the type of racism that exists between individuals, right? And how this bias occurs when we interact with others and their personal beliefs that are predicated upon their understanding of race. And it affects how we engage with each other. Then another form of racism is this internalized racism, right? This is belief that, you know, we hold these private views and these biases about race and racism, and that could be influenced by how we view others through our cultural lenses, right? And ultimately, this could produce some sort of prejudicial behavior towards others from a different race. You know, some of us may also find that because of this, you know, experience of prejudicial treatment, we begin to internalize that oppression, and it really, really, you know, affects how we see others and how we move in this world. And another, of course, important type of racism, really something that is specific to, you know, our educational institutions and systems, and of course, institutional racism. You know, I've had conversations with colleagues about this, and I've tried my best to distinguish between this between interpersonal racism and structural or institutional racism. You know, institutional racism exists in the systems and structures that our institutions were created off of. And for many of us, that's you know, at least 100 years ago, before any of us were born, right? And so we didn't play any role in creating these institutional racist systems, practices, and structures. But you know, at the same time, acknowledging how those practices, if still maintained, right, continues to reinforce in those gaps that certain groups of our students experience. And then, of course, that's going to require us then to, once we identify what are those structural racist practices and policies that are in place, then we need to, as anti-racists, to engage in systematically, you know, disrupting, destroying, and rebuilding more equitable structures. And that's what anti-racism is really about. And being an anti-racist, just constantly identifying, challenging, and looking to upend those racist policies. How do we get to racial justice? Oh, well, first thing it's for us to understand is that racial justice is sort of the extension of the anti-racist work that we seek to engage in, right? Anti-racism is about destroying, right? Deliberately and intentionally dealing with those racist structures that result in those opportunity gaps experienced by our historically marginalized student groups, right? And the natural outcome of our anti-racist work is to ensure that those those inequities, right, no longer exist, and that we ultimately provide an equitable educational experience for all students. And that requires us to be constantly proactive and engage preventative measures to do so. And so really important that we recognize that racism exists, that racism remains, and my colleague Michelle is going to reinforce that with the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. It's really, if we think about it, we're not in a post-racial society. We've got to acknowledge that. This is the fact that racism continues. And we've seen that in the pandemic. We've seen, and yesterday, Dr. Bull talked about that the data shows how there's disparities and that there are collective groups, historically marginalized groups, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, API, so historically marginalized groups that are and continue to be invisible and that continue to experience the harm left to the, as Dr. Lowe was saying yesterday, the vestiges and the remnants perpetuated and weaved throughout our society that continue the harm. Now, again, like Juan was saying, as you struggle with, as Lisa, I know I, struggled when I heard this, and my grandparents, when growing up in East LA, working towards trying to get us to assimilate, that was conditioned into my brain. And so if we think about, there has been so many laws that discriminated and created injustices, laws for Black and Brown people, everything from, marriage to socioeconomic and education. We've got to acknowledge that and then think about, okay, so as a collective, as a faculty, as an academy, even though we may not have intentionally or even been when those initial, elements of our society have happened and were created, how have we perpetuated the harm that continues? So it will take a lot to acknowledge that so that we can work actively to invest in that, number one, acknowledgement, that reckoning, and that awareness, and then engage deeply in work that doesn't feel comfortable to dismantle that. And that begins with that common language, like that, Cheryl, I think put in the and that we throughout the event put in the chat with the DEI glossary, right? And soon to be added with accessibility as well. So those are things that we want to do so that we don't, mislead and think about, okay, we're getting better. Yes, we're getting better, but there's still harm. So we've got to acknowledge that and work with that that's being done. So on the next slide, I have, I believe, Juan, you're going to take the next slide and to really talk deeply about the structures.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, for the lead in. And if we can go to the next slide. Look, I wish if to borrow a Marvel comic scenario, if I had the Infinity Stones, I wish I could change reality to where this work wasn't difficult and that it was not taxing. In fact, I wish that race and racism didn't exist, right? But the reality is it does. And as difficult as it is to recognize that we are still dealing with the vestiges of racism that is inherent in our educational institutions, we also have to recognize that as anti-racist, or as we begin to take the steps or further our work as an anti-racist, we have to be prepared for the implications that those efforts are going to bring about. Again, just referring back to what my colleague Leslie framed for us, this is a journey and not everybody is at the same place. So I think it's important for us to recognize that right from the onset. You know, I may be at a different place than where Michelle is. And that is okay. As long as you sit in your zone and recognize where you are and identify where you want to be, then, you know, you're preparing yourself for the, you know, I'm a Marine, so I'm just going to say it, the battle that is going to come. All right. So what are some of the challenges? What are the implications of engaging this type of work? Political backlash. Let's be clear, right? There will be political backlash. The reality is that some of our colleagues just do not believe that race or racism exists today, and therefore they are diametrically opposed to any anti-racism or equity-minded efforts. And for those of us who are engaged in this work, the result is that we're going to become targets. And I say that, you know, not, you know, connoting that somebody's going to come to campus and look for you with a weapon, but it really becomes where you are being dealt with in conversations that you're not part of. And that discourse is really going to paint you in ways that may cause for those of us who aspire to leadership positions on our own campuses, you might feel that those leadership aspirations are gonna succumb to that political backlash, right? And along with such racist political backlash, you're gonna feel that sometimes you're gonna be alone, or at least, you know, believe that you're alone. You know, in my journey, there's been colleagues and administrators that I thought once were my allies, who have, you know, started to distance themselves from me because of the political discourse that my name and my efforts seem to, you know, connote. And so it's really, really challenging, right? And these instances where you're feeling ostracized or you're feeling isolated, you know, in your own little bubble, is going to, you know, have attacks on you emotionally and mentally. And this trauma, like for myself, my feeling betrayed or hoodwinked by somebody that I thought was a co-conspirator or an ally, is really, really, really challenging and taxing on the heart and on the mind and on my psychology, right? And all of this, you know, can in fact result in physical exhaustion and psychological exhaustion. So it's really important that we recognize the implications of engaging in this sort of work, and what can we do to prepare for this type of work. Well, like I like to tell my co-conspirators who are engaged in this work, is we need to organize, we need to plan, we need to organize some more, and we need to plan some more, right? And how does that, what does that look like? What might that look like? Well, first things first, recognize that there's a game plan out there, the colonizers' game plan, about how to oppose any sort of change that is seeking to push an effort that they are diametrically opposed to, right? So you might find yourself confronting efforts of delay and, you know, in hopes of trying to forestall any sort of progress on the work that is being done or is seeking to be done. You might also find that there are attempts by some of our colleagues to obfuscate the efforts, right? Requesting more dialogue, requesting more training, right? Which may not be bad, but we have to recognize what is their intention. Are they actually going to take this training and dialogue and engage in some action-oriented efforts? In other words, are they going to jump in and toe the line and lean into the work, right? Look for opportunities to begin conversations with colleagues that may be on the fence here, right? And this is what some of my colleagues, we identify as decolonization of the individual, and we hope the collective mindset. How do we engage people who are, on the fence, who are early on in their journey, maybe in the fear zone? How do we help them move through their journey and progress through their journey? Dialogue, and of course, having that dialogue with those who are willing to have that dialogue, right? Because what I have found in my efforts is that I have had some conversations with my colleagues that seemingly are on the fence. They appear to be willing to lean into this work, but they're concerned, or they are not sure about what racism is, or what structural racism might look like, and what sort of actions are required to engage in anti-racist work, right? And by engaging in those conversations with my colleagues, it thawed our relationship, a relationship that was usually just professional, has started to become more personal. And once you open up that personal connection, then just maybe we can move through the journey together. And so the last thing I think we want to consider in engaging in anti-racist work is just find the strength of the tried and tested strategies and tactics of past solidarity movements, whether they were the solidarity movements of 2 years ago, or those of the 1960s and 1970s. Really important that we look at how we can capitalize and utilize some of those successes, those tactics that allowed them to get the outcomes that they were seeking to achieve. And so one of the things that we would like to do, though, is to provide you with the opportunity to engage in conversation with each other. And to lead you in that is going to be my colleague, Leslie. Next slide.
Is that Leslie or is it me? I don't want to talk over you, Leslie. So if it's yours, take it. Otherwise, I can go.
No, I think that was, you did totally fine, but I think this was me. So we do want to take some time to bring us into chat rooms and breakout rooms so that we can discuss this amongst ourselves in smaller groups, just to share everyone's journey individually and with your institutions. So, and this is where I think our tech person, right, is going to break us apart. And do we have our prompt will come up next?
Yeah, so I will be putting you all into breakout rooms. Right now, I'm just going to automatically assign them. And then I'm going to go into all 4 of them and put the correct speaker in the correct room, because there are so many of you. I would like to automatically assign it.
Awesome. And as you can see here, we've got the person who most recently visited a snowy place will go first. That's awesome. And do we have our prompt?
I put the prompt in the chat, but I think it's also on the next slide.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Cheryl. And here is our prompt. So if you are committed to, we know this is all difficult work, as Juan was just elaborating on so beautifully and eloquently. If you are committed to the type of radical transformation that the system is calling for, it means that you are likely experience setbacks, right? It's not a smooth journey. You're going to experience resistance, disappointment, and apathy from others, but there's going to be successes also. So what have you learned from the lessons, and what advice or successes can you offer other leaders that are engaged in this anti-racist work? So basically, we want to hear what successes you're experiencing, what advice have you got to share from us, to share with your counterparts in the breakout rooms. And if you had a person that visited a snowy place out there, you are first.
And 15 minutes in the breakout rooms. I think we still have time for that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So what is our timing like? I know we were a little slow start, but so it's, what do we got?
So if we can come back, if Danny closes the room, close the room in 15 minutes, the room's in 15 minutes, like, so by 11:35, if we come back,
Okay.
and then we'll do some large group share out
Okay.
before we go to the Padlet. So I think we have enough time for that.
Yeah, we'll just shorten that debrief a little bit.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay.
Perfect.
Any questions from anybody? Are we all good? I think there's lots of clapping and applause going on behind all the cameras. It's just fantastic. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you all. See you in the breakout.
As I see folks trickle back in, welcome back. For those of you that weren't in my room, I hope your room was as invigorating as mine was. Fantastic people to work with and share space with, so thank you. I see our numbers are still climbing, so folks are trickling in. You know, it takes a long time to walk from one virtual room to the next, so get your steps in.
Cheryl, are you going to get the chat log from that breakout room? I couldn't write it all down fast enough that people were sending me tips.
Good question. I'll have to check into that. I don't have it. I didn't save it. But we can probably come up with a few.
Sometimes they save automatically after.
It's mine saved, so I may have it on the backside.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
All right. So as we're back, we only want to take a few minutes because we really want to get to another activity. But just anybody want to highlight something that they heard in their room, whether it was something they shared or something that really gave them thought from something a colleague shared. Let's take maybe 3 examples or 3 share outs. We'll make it 4 since we had 4 rooms. Don't be shy.
I know group M. Whoop, whoop. Maybe Lisa, you want to come in? Oh, John. Okay, John.
I'll just say it was great. It's nice because I work in a very small department, so having all these people around, I got more suggestions in 30 seconds than I've gotten in the last year. So that's cool, just to be able to ask a question. I really liked that. It was great.
And John, I'm actually noticing the chat now includes, at least for me, everything from our room. So just make sure to save it when you're done.
I'll see if I can figure that out. I don't know if I can save it as the non-organizer. I'll try.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
For Imperial Valley College, for those of us on the path, we've discovered some different ways of bringing colleagues, somewhat reluctant colleagues in by figuring out whatever appeals to them, whether it's student success and retention versus the focus on anti-racism. So, when there are different options, yay, Andrew, we'll have to talk later. Yay. We kind of just move past, figure out what somebody else's comfort zone is and try to bring them along for the ride. So, but it was a great room and some different ideas came up in the chat. So thanks for the extra burst of energy.
Thank you. We heard a couple of things. I mean, really not to take work personally. We talked a little bit about in our room, supporting people, giving them grace and space to both make mistakes and to grow, approaching things from a personal perspective, not taking it personally, but making personal connections can make a difference. Being co-conspirators, particularly our allies. Other things you might have heard in your rooms, please share. We've got a couple minutes. My dogs are about to start weighing in.
Does anybody from my room, Nick, do you want to speak? I don't want to throw anybody from my room up, but is anybody?
Well, maybe just a couple of pertinent comments. I was talking a little bit about kind of asking people to make connections to race where they haven't thought about them before, right? Particularly in subjects, and one of my colleagues talked about this a little bit too, about particularly in subjects where people are quick to say, oh, well, that's not really applicable to my subject or what I teach or, this particular thing. Kind of asking people, right? So my example was in professional development. When we have workshop facilitators, to just ask them to think about that context, right? And in what way for your participants can you ask those participants to think about the ways in which this subject, right, is connected to issues of race or diversity, anti-racism, right? How can you make your practices more anti-racist, even if you haven't ever thought about that before? And sometimes it's clumsy and sometimes it feels forced. But I think normalizing that, and the more that people try to do it, the more likely they are to start to see those connections where they didn't see them before. And then one of my other colleagues mentioned also just that, you know, people have those people that they listen to, right? And so sometimes it's, you know, it's about them hearing it from the person that they're going to hear it from, right? And you can say the same thing that, you know, 5 people can say the same thing, right? But people will hear it from the person that they trust, or that they are the most like, or that whatever. And so sometimes it's just a matter of getting the word out there through, you know, through your allies or through different affinity groups, or, you know, whatever the case may be, so that they hear it from the person that they need to hear it from, so that they really hear it.
Thank you, Nick. Just in the space of time, let's go ahead and move to our next slide. And I think I turn this over to Leslie to make sure that we have a few minutes. I'll tell you, we're scheduled to end at 11:45 or maybe even 11:40. And then there's a break until the next like regathering of everybody at noon. So if you don't mind us cutting a few minutes into your group, stick around. Leslie will tell you what we're doing. If you really need to go, we totally understand. And hopefully we'll see you again at noon in the main group.
Yeah, so for this one, kind of fun. If you focus in on the little QR code, you can open up the Padlet. And because the little white, we can't be swayed, right, by the little winding path here. We know, as Juan had alluded and everyone has talked about, we know this isn't an easy path. We know that it is difficult, and we need to figure out what your next steps are going to be in this journey. It's going to be rough. We know it's rough. So what are you going to do next? What will be your next steps on your journey? What is going to be the next steps you might take with your institution? How will you create space? How will you create space in your classrooms? How will you create steps with your staff? Whatever it is that your position is, thinking of the circles with the zones. Where are you landing there? Where do you sit there? Just taking a moment to kind of ponder that. So we invite you to find your space in the Padlet and head there. Did I kind of capture that, Michelle? Have I missed anything there?
That's perfect. And then there's little hearts that you can, you know, like some of your colleagues' comments as well.
And if you haven't used Padlet, the 3 guiding questions are across the top, and at the bottom of the column under each, there's a circle with a plus inside. So you can click on that to make your own comments. And then, as Michelle said, if you like what someone else has said, give them click on the heart to show some love. And I see right from the start, the first one that popped up is decolonize my curriculum. Another one, read Stamped from the Beginning, powerful book, really powerful, difficult to read, honestly, for me, but very powerful. Understand the students, right? Listen to our students. Lead a book chat. What a fantastic idea to, you know, offer that to your campus, or even just a small group of colleagues to, you know, engage with others in these conversations and challenge these others in a really safe, supported, brave, healthy way, right? Next steps, center and refresh. Certainly, we do have to sustain this in the long haul, and it is important that we practice self-care, and sometimes that means stepping back for a moment and letting others lead the work and engage while we support them, and then take turns. Senate in the process of updating faculty hiring policy and embedding DEI practices. That's fantastic to hear. And for others who, you know, aren't sure if your Senate's engaging in that, ask questions of your senators, particularly your Senate president, your officers, and then know that the Academic Senate is a resource for you if you need any support for that, whether it be resources or conversation. We can help with that. Speak for Star Too Long. I've stayed quiet when triggered. Yes, speak up. I'm so sorry, the dog is speaking up.
He agrees, Cheryl.
Oh my goodness.
Right? I mean, look at this. Keep going. I see someone in their next step is saying, being bold and advocating your agency and asking and demanding change for college practices and policies. I love it. I am so energized. Look at this one. being unapologetic in this work. Yes.
Yes.
Don't apologize. Like, yes, thank you,
Good.
Nick. Snapping for that one. Like, just do it. And you know what? You've got to do the self-care because you're going to need to take some time, re-energize, and remember that there were some badass chingonas and ancestors that came before us. So you are not alone in the work. And just remember, they've done all that work before us. So do what you need to do. Take a break if you need to. Get energized, center yourself, and then come back to it. And be louder.
Yes.
And be louder. Because what Cheryl was saying earlier, we've seen it in history. What Juan was saying earlier, we've seen it in history. You're gonna be attacked. Know that. You all here, you're here because you're already equity champions. You already understand the dangers of being race neutral. Know that you must invest and take care of yourself to continue the work. We owe it to our ancestors, yeah?
We do.
Review curriculum for anti-racist wording.
Yes.
Yes.
Build trust with students. Continue to self-reflect and self-educate while actively redesigning courses. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, research. Yes.
Include anti-racist context in the first year seminar that's being developed, and include discussions based on literature. Fantastic. Institutionalize equity. So many different ways we need to do that. And it's centering on our students, and it's bringing up equity and interrogating repeatedly, asking the questions. Good.
Oh my gosh, look at this one, Cheryl. Excellence, Black excellence, Latinx excellence, API excellence, excellence in STEM and LGBTQ excellence. Like, though we need to, if
we
well,
do.
safe space, right? If we cannot go onto our campuses and talk about race and say we need to support our Black students, our LGBTQ students, our Latinx, if we can't say those words, let's take a step back and reflect. We need to be able to say, these are the students that we serve, and we desire and demand to serve them by doing our best. I love it.
Can't hit the heart buttons fast enough for all these fantastic
know,
ideas.
they're so
You all
great.
inspire me. Michelle, do you want to wrap us up? Or I don't remember who's supposed to.
I am so appreciative of you all. We're all sending you look at warm virtual hugs because this is so powerful, so important to the work that we find community. I think it was Leslie that was going to wrap us up, right? Leslie, talk a little bit about the self-care. So if we could go to the last slide, and we have about like a minute or so.
So, this is where we say, this is my true, like, we can't mistake that this work is easy and comfortable, right? Like everyone has been saying all along, the winding boardwalk again, like, don't mistake this. Acknowledgement that equity work is emotional work is critical. It's critical. If your faculty is not creating the safe space for you, then you have to create the safe space. You have to take that upon yourselves. Please create the safe space. How do you do that? How do you create the safe space? Talk to people, talk to each other. Reach out to Michelle, reach out to someone on the Equity, Diversity, and Action Committee, find a companion, find a champion. I think that everyone that is here today, you can find people, find your people. Creating that same community amongst your staff, on your campuses, in your classrooms, critical. How do we keep moving forward to support the students and the colleagues? This is going to be possible with goals and acknowledgement of the emotions that are here, and self-care that Michelle has alluded to, critical. Self-care in this is so important. Without it, we really have nothing, just burnout and then you have nothing, right? So, okay, enough of that. Asking questions openly, addressing biases within and without, getting uncomfortable and sitting with the discomfort. As we start to seek out others who do not look like us, I know that that's one of the biggest things that I'm working on within myself, within the creation of, again, those safe spaces, community, trust, and with the vision that everyone here has on these 5 pages of people that is so wonderful, right? That's so wonderful. Vision and teamwork with a plan and with the institutions that are slowly coming along, we'll start to see the success.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, friends. I know that Danny put into the chat the general session link again. And as you find that in the chat, to open up a new tab to a new window, thank you, friends. Thank you, Danny, for being our support in the back end. And we'll all head over to the main room now. Thank you, friends. And that song was Marmeen, if anyone in the chat wanted to know. I don't know if I had rights to share it, so if we could do it in educational purposes. Thanks.
Can you repost the main session link again?
Huh?
Can you repost the main session link again? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Oh, there's Danny put it there. Thank you.
पता नहीं एविस जब हमने उस दिन वो बनाया था ना कुछ और समोसा मुझे नहीं पता मैं तो इसी में क्लिक कर देती हूँ उसी में ऑलरेडी है ये तो प्रॉब्लम है बहुत सारे देखने पड़ेंगे
Do you know what this means? This says, whenever I try to sign in to a Zoom meeting, it says, this meeting is authorized for participants only. And it kicks me out. Does that mean like I most likely had to sign to my school email one or something? Like I don't even know if my school email gave me one. It's weird. So like I don't like it, but I have to sign in on my phone. And I don't like looking at it on my phone.
Because it won't. Oh, trooper. Is this, hold on. How can I?